Summer break finally arrived, and after 9 months of teaching hormonal teenagers about literature, I was ready for some relaxation. But first, I had promised my second oldest son I'd help him move from Queen Creek to Eloy, Arizona. For those who don't know Arizona geography, that's quite a haul. About an hour and a half drive between these small towns. My son had rented one of those smaller U-Haul trucks, and I was on driving duty. After picking up the truck from the rental place, I headed to his apartment complex. I noticed right away the engine was making some concerning noises, chugging and sputtering more than it should. Not a good sign, but we had a move to complete. The apartment complex was packed with cars, and finding a spot for a U-Haul was like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. After circling a few times, I finally pulled perpendicular to some parked cars, blocking two covered parking spots that were empty. I made sure not to block the driving lane, basic courtesy, right? I also noticed there were several other empty spots scattered around, including 5 unclaimed spots right next to where I parked. I hopped out and found my sons waiting for me. I quickly explained to my sons that because the truck wasn't sounding great, we needed to make this a quick job. I told them we should focus on loading the big stuff first, furniture and things that wouldn't fit in their cars, and that we could come back for the smaller items later. My sons nodded in agreement, and we got to work. I was pushing a heavy dresser on a dolly when my younger son approached me with a worried look. My younger son told me that there was a lady outside who was demanding we move our truck. When I asked why, since we weren't blocking anyone in, he explained that she was claiming we were in her parking spot. I sighed and headed outside to reason with this person. A woman was standing by my U-Haul, arms crossed and foot tapping impatiently. Her perfectly manicured nails drummed against her arm as she glared at me. I tried to point out to the woman that there were 3 open spots nearby and assured her we'd be finished soon, but she cut me off before I could finish. She angrily insisted that it was her space and demanded that I move the truck immediately. I attempted to explain our situation again, telling her there really wasn't anywhere else to move to and that the truck wasn't running well anyway. I promised we would be quick, but she wasn't having it. She just kept demanding that I let her into her space, saying she didn't care what we did afterward, but that we needed to move the truck right that instant. Something in me snapped. I'd spent 9 months dealing with entitled parents demanding special treatment for their precious children, and I wasn't about to start my summer break taking orders from this woman. I sarcastically agreed to her demands, letting her know I would move. Then I proceeded to unfasten the ramp as slowly and dramatically as possible, making eye contact and smiling the entire time. She had pulled her BMW so close that my backside brushed against her hood ornament as I worked. I pulled down the door, locked it with exaggerated care, and climbed into the driver's seat. I started the engine, which made a concerning clunking noise, and drove off. I circled around the complex and pulled right back in, parking directly behind her BMW exactly where I'd been before. When she realized what I'd done, she got really angry. Gas was $5.19 a gallon, so I turned the truck off to save fuel. The woman and a man, presumably her partner, stormed away, both reeking of patchouli and radiating the disappointed energy of failed guidance counselors. We went back to loading the truck. About an hour later, just as I was wheeling another load up the ramp, the man emerged from their apartment like he'd been summoned. The man questioned why we were still there and what was taking us so long. I casually told him that we'd be out of his hair soon enough. He threatened to have our stupid Texas hick country bumpkin truck towed and called me a stupid hick. I just shook my head, partly to stop myself from saying something I'd regret, partly because I couldn't believe he thought I was from Texas just because the U-Haul had Texas plates. How does a grown adult not know U-Hauls come from all over? We hurried to finish loading, not because of his threats, but because maybe they actually did have some emergency. Once everything was loaded, I climbed back into the driver's seat, ready for the final act of my malicious compliance. I turned the key, and the engine cranked but wouldn't start. Perfect timing. I cursed under my breath but then laughed at the irony of the situation. I was going to need to get the truck towed anyway. I called U-Haul's roadside assistance, and 5 glorious hours later, they showed up to fix the truck. The mechanic even followed us all the way to Eloy and helped unload our stuff. Would I normally have been annoyed waiting 5 hours for roadside assistance? Absolutely. But watching the entitled couple having to call an Uber to leave, while my sons and I bonded over takeout Chinese food in the parking lot, made it all worthwhile. As we sat there eating our food, my older son raised his soda cup and made a toast to summer vacation. We all clinked our cups together. Not how I planned to start my break, but it turned out to be a pretty entertaining day after all. I'm a delivery driver for Uber Eats. The job pays well enough, and I get to ride my motorcycle all day, which I love. It's a hefty 500cc bike that I saved up for 2 years to buy. That bike isn't just my transportation, it's my livelihood and my pride and joy. I grew up in a strict household. My parents taught me that no matter your age, you own up to your mistakes and make things right. This mindset has served me well throughout my life, though it sometimes puts me at odds with the more lenient attitudes I see around me these days. In my delivery area, there's this one spot where drivers often wait for orders. Unfortunately, it's also a hangout for a gang of teenage troublemakers. These kids, ranging from 12 to 15 years old, are well known in the community for causing problems. They vandalize property, harass locals, and occasionally cross the line into more serious crimes. The police are constantly moving them along, but they always return. One evening, I parked my bike outside a KFC to pick up an order. When I waited inside the restaurant, I had no idea what was happening outside until another driver rushed in. He urgently told me that someone was trying to steal my bike. I immediately ran outside. I bolted outside just in time to see two teenagers on my motorcycle. One had jammed a penknife into the ignition barrel and somehow managed to start the engine. The kid in the driver's seat was kicking off the side stand as I approached. What these amateur thieves didn't understand is that motorcycles aren't like the ones in video games. You need skill to handle a 225-kilogram machine. The moment the side stand went up, the weight was too much for the skinny teenager. The bike toppled over, throwing the passenger off and pinning the driver underneath. The passenger cracked his head on the pavement and was bleeding badly. The driver was screaming in pain with his leg crushed under the bike. Their friends, who had been watching and laughing, scattered immediately when things went wrong. I called for police and an ambulance while canceling my order. Then I grabbed some napkins from the KFC and did my best to stop the head wound from bleeding. The police arrived quickly. They were familiar with this group of kids, having responded to over 120 calls about them in just the past month for everything from trespassing to grievous bodily harm. When they saw me tending to the injured teen while the other was still pinned under my bike, they immediately started helping. The first officer asked me what had happened. I explained that they had tried to steal my bike and learned the hard way that riding motorcycles wasn't like playing video games. I said I would be pressing charges and wanted them to face real repercussions. The officers looked surprised by my determination, especially given the teen's injuries. The first officer asked if I was sure about pressing charges, reminding me that they were just kids after all. I responded that their age didn't excuse their serious crimes. The second officer expressed concern that I might ruin their lives. I shot back that these kids didn't attend school, committed crimes daily, and only ever received anti-social behavior orders as punishment. I instructed them to read the teens their rights. The officers clearly didn't like my tone, but they understood why I was angry. One began reading the pinned teenager his rights while we waited for the ambulance. When the paramedics arrived, they immediately attended to the unconscious teen before helping free the other one from under my bike. Right about then, their parents showed up, having been called by the police. They parked recklessly in a bus stop and ran over, looking horrified at their injured children. The father demanded to know why the police were arresting his son, insisting they were just being stupid kids and promising to pay for the damage to my bike. I explained that I was pressing charges because they wouldn't learn their lesson any other way. I added that they would be paying for the damages regardless of the outcome. The father then tried to bargain, offering to pay for damages only if I dropped the charges. The first officer advised him to pay regardless, suggesting it might help his son at sentencing. The mother asked about the potential sentence if they didn't pay. I bluntly told her it could easily be 4 years. She turned pale and started crying, begging me to let her son go because he was just a kid. I responded that he was also a criminal who needed to face what he did for once. That phrase, "they're just kids," really got under my skin. It was nothing but a cheap excuse, the kind that had emboldened these teenagers to believe they could do whatever they wanted and get away with it. In the end, the unconscious kid was charged as an accessory after waking from a week-long coma. The one who tried to drive my bike was charged with vehicle theft and vandalism. The police also rounded up their friends and charged them with their numerous other crimes. The parents paid for the damage to my bike to help reduce their children's sentences, though they complained that their kids had suffered enough. The driver got 2 years in juvenile detention with 3 years of probation. His friend got 6 months with 18 months of probation. Their gang members received punishments ranging from community service to 4 years in detention, depending on their individual crimes. 2 years later, I ran into both boys. They were attending school regularly, and they approached me to offer genuine apologies for what they'd done. They told me that juvenile detention had been a wake-up call and it changed their lives. I'm really glad they came around. Everyone in my family except for me and my younger brother was born in Slovakia. Our parents, grandparents, and older siblings all came from Europe, while we were the American-born kids. Growing up felt like living in two worlds at once. We switched between English and Slovak without thinking, and thanks to my grandmother's lessons, I even learned to write in Slovak before English. When I started school, I attended this charter school that was pretty great. I made friends easily and enjoyed learning. That all changed in third grade when this one kid showed up. From day one, he was trouble. He would snitch on everyone for the smallest things just to get his way. Sometimes he would even bite other kids when he got really mad. The teachers were always dealing with some problem he caused, but somehow he never seemed to get in serious trouble. Fast forward to 5th grade. Our school held this annual book fair, which was basically an expensive bookstore that doubled as a fundraiser for the school. I've been saving up for months because I knew the latest book in my favorite series, The Last Kids on Earth, was coming out. On the first day of the fair, I rushed over after class and managed to grab the very last copy they had in stock. I was so excited. I paid for it right away and sat down in the reading area to start enjoying it. I've been reading for about 15 minutes when I noticed the jerk kid and his mother walk in. I tried to ignore them and kept reading. Then my friend showed up and sat next to me. Suddenly, I felt someone standing over me. I looked up and saw the kid's mother just staring down at me with this weird expression. She politely said, "Excuse me," to get my attention. When I asked what she wanted, she demanded that I give her my book. I refused. Then she started shouting, saying I had to give her the book because her son wanted it. She also claimed I was too old to be reading that kind of book since I was already 10 years old. I told her no again and explained that I had paid for the book and it was mine now. That's when things went completely crazy. This woman actually slapped me across the face, like a full-on adult slap. She then tried to kick me, but before her foot could connect, my friend launched himself at her like a linebacker and tackled her to the ground. Everyone in the book fair started screaming and running around. The teachers rushed over and called for the school resource officer. While all the adults were trying to restrain this crazy woman, her son snuck up behind me and bit my arm. I mean, who does that in 5th grade? I reacted on instinct and elbowed him in the face, then ran outside to get away from the whole situation. My face was stinging pretty bad from the slap. I'm used to some physical pain since my little brother and I wrestle sometimes, but this was different. An adult had actually hit me. I sat outside for a few minutes trying to calm down. When the resource officer arrived, I went back inside to get my book, which I'd left behind during the chaos. Big mistake. The second this woman saw me, she started screaming again. She falsely accused me of assaulting her son and demanded that I be arrested, claiming I had attacked them for no reason. Thankfully, the cashier at the book fair and my friend immediately spoke up. The cashier corrected her, explaining that the woman had demanded my book and then slapped me. My friend backed this up, saying he saw the whole thing and that she hit me first. followed by her son biting me. The resource officer told me to go to the nurse to get my arm checked out. I had a clear bite mark that was already turning purple. The nurse cleaned it and put some antibiotic cream on it. About 2 hours later, my friend and I were called to the principal's office. The principal was surprisingly calm about everything. He asked us both to tell him exactly what happened at the book fair that day. We told him the whole story, just how it happened. He nodded and then turned his computer monitor around to show us. He explained that he had reviewed the security footage and it matched our account. The woman had assaulted me first and her son attacked me afterward. Later that day, my parents came to pick me up and a police officer asked them if they wanted to press charges against the woman. They didn't hesitate to say yes. The kid got suspended for a week and his mother had to pay for my book since it got damaged in all the commotion. I got a brand new copy of The Last Kids on Earth and never saw that kid or his mother at our school again. Apparently, they moved him to another school after the incident. I guess some people just can't. I was just an average sixth grader trying to mind my own business. My parents had divorced when I was 7, and my dad remarried a year later. My stepmom and I never really got along. She always thought I was causing trouble even when I wasn't. Our school had this zero-tolerance policy about fighting. If you were involved in a fight in any way, even if someone just punched you for no reason, you'd get at least 1 day of in-school suspension. It really just meant that if you were going to get punished anyway, you might as well fight back. That's what happened to me one Tuesday morning. I was at my locker when this kid who'd been giving me trouble for weeks came up behind me. He accused me of thinking I was smart with my answers in math class the day before. I asked him what he was talking about. He said I had made him look stupid in front of everyone. I started to explain that I wasn't trying to make him look bad, but before I could finish, he punched me in the stomach. As I doubled over, I thought, if I'm already going to be suspended, I might as well make this count. I straightened up and hit him hard on the side of the head, then tackled him to the ground. We fought until a teacher pulled us apart and ordered us to the principal's office. The kid claimed I attacked him for no reason. I protested that he hit me first and there were witnesses. The principal asked who saw what happened. The kid named 3 of his best friends. I pointed out those were all his friends and asked if I could call my witnesses too. The principal refused and told me not to contact my parents yet. The school safety officer interviewed me without my parents present, even though I was only 11. After the interviews, both our parents showed up, my dad and his mom. My dad went into the principal's office first while I waited outside with the kid and his mom. His mom demanded to know how I dared hit her child. I insisted he hit me first. She slapped me across the face so hard my nose started bleeding. When the officer came over, he claimed he didn't see anything happen. My dad didn't believe me either despite my bleeding nose. His mom screamed that her son was the victim and I was a troublemaker. The principal gave the kid 2 days of in-school suspension and me 4 days of out-of-school suspension. The car ride home was silent. My stepmom was waiting, arms crossed. She asked what I had done. My dad said I got in a fight and then lied about it. I insisted I didn't lie. To this day, my stepmom still brings up when I got suspended for fighting and lying. Years later, I found out the school safety officer had been having an affair with the kid's mom. That explained why he took their side. I got my revenge in high school by writing an anonymous expose about corruption in our old middle school for the school newspaper. The story made it to the local newspaper and both the principal and that safety officer ended up resigning under pressure.